Hey there, welcome back to the Reiki Witch channel. My name is Jack. I am the Reiki Witch, and we are speaking on behalf of the Reiki Den. Okay, so that was like really long, really awkward introduction. I'm really sorry for that. We'll try it again the next time, maybe a little bit more smooth. I will get it at some point, I promise. So today I am just following up on my tarot story video from the other day. Right at the end of the video, I had commented on tarot decks having different personalities, and I wanted to kind of touch base a little bit further on that, and I had definitely mentioned that at the time. So the reason I bring this up, okay, is because I've had some, we'll say, interesting experiences with different tarot decks, or the same tarot deck but a different copy. Okay, so this has happened to me a few times. Now, when I initially started collecting tarot decks, I was very, very, very particular about what I acquired. One deck that I had acquired that I had some difficulty with reading and never seemed to work well for me was the Goddess Tarot that I had mentioned the other day. I've actually had 3 copies of the Goddess Tarot. So the first one, I just didn't seem to be able to grasp. It was, I think at the time, it was too similar image-wise to the Rider-Waite, even though the imagery itself was actually a completely different style, different coloring. It was primarily females. I just had a hard time connecting with it, but my roommate at the time loved it, so I gave it to her. And then I decided, not too long after I moved, actually, so we're still looking at quite a while ago, I had moved across the country and decided that I really, really, really wanted that deck after all. So I bought a new copy, and that one was a lot easier for me to read. It had like a different feel to it, okay? And then when I moved again, I ended up losing all of my tarot decks except for one. Just one. And now the name of that deck is escaping me, although the Deviant Moon Tarot. That's the only one I managed to keep with that move. So, okay, fine. So I did actually acquire yet another, okay, so we're at the 3rd copy now of this Goddess Tarot. And it was even easier to read. Okay, but this one, it felt like I got straightforward answers. It was, it wasn't beating around the bush at all, but it wasn't harsh. Okay, I wasn't getting harsh readings. So I really did enjoy that deck at that point, but in the end, I still don't have it because it also got left behind when I moved back here, when I moved home. I think I brought 8 or 10 decks with me. I had several more packed in a different bag, but due to circumstances out of my control, that bag did not make it here. So I no longer have the deck, but it really was worth the experience because it's exactly the same deck, but my experiences reading it were different. Is it because it was the same deck but a different copy? I mean, honestly, probably not really, but for me, my tarot decks all have like a personality. They all read in their own way, right? Now, if you sit down with the little white book or some version of the guidebook for any tarot deck, they're all going to come across a little bit different. So you're going to have, say, a fairy themed deck that's going to have very frou-frou answers. It's going to be very gentle for the most part. Even the negative stuff is twisted to a positive. So Sorry, I saw something on my computer that didn't make sense.
Incoming call.
Excuse me for a second. Hey, sorry about that. I had a tarot reading come through, so I took care of that, and here we are. I'm not 100% sure anymore where we were on that previous part of the video, so I'm just going to continue on. Okay. So there's another deck that I have as an example of same decks, different personalities. Okay. So the other deck that I've had many copies of, in fact, even more than the Goddess Tarot, would be the Robin Wood. Okay. So the very first time I got a copy of the Robin Wood deck, it, for me, read exactly the same as the Rider-Waite that I had so many problems with. Go figure, right? So again, a different roommate this time, but I kind of handed it over to him and said, here, you try reading this, because he was really interested in them. And he had no difficulties whatsoever. So, okay, I gave it to him, along with the big book that I had that taught you about the meanings and stuff beyond what the little white book said. And he had that deck right up until he moved out and moved to the other side of the country. And to the best of my knowledge, he's actually still using that deck. So we're going back 10 years. No, we're going back more like 13 years. Actually, sorry, my dog sees someone outside and is getting a little excited, and I'm getting cards. Okay, sorry again. The dog is no longer barking. There's nobody else outside in front of my house. So, the second time I bought the Robin Wood Tarot, I was still in that same location, actually. And I bought another copy of it thinking I'm probably going to have the same difficulty that I did the last time, right? Because that deck was just brutal. Like, it was so brutal. It was mean, almost. Like, I would, lay my cards out and almost cry because it was so harsh. Okay. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out, why it was so harsh with me. So that's, why when my friend was able to read it in a much more positive way than I was, it was totally fine with me to give that up. So when I bought the second copy, like I said, I was expecting that same kind of attitude, basically. But for some reason I was drawn to actually buying that deck again. And I did. And I had zero problems reading it. And it wasn't angry. It wasn't bitchy. It wasn't insulting. It was just perfect. I loved it. I still love it to this day. So then I moved, as I said. And the Robin Wood was one of the decks that, well, I brought all of my decks with me that I had at that point. It wasn't until after that that I started losing them. So I brought this deck with me, and it was the primary deck. Excuse me for a second. Sorry about that. My coffee cup's a little bit too close to the cat. So, sorry, lost my train of thought there. So it ended up being the deck that I used for all of my public readings at that point. And it was an absolute huge favorite. Okay, and I used it all the time. When I moved from that city, and I moved again, that deck got not left behind, but yes, left behind. So we were really limited because, weight restrictions on your bags and stuff when you're flying. And I had put as many of my decks as I thought was reasonable into my suitcase or, my carry-on bag. And then the rest of my decks were in a box that was left with a friend of ours. and she was just holding them until my daughter was able to pick them up, and she was going to ship them out to me so that, I would have those cards still. And instead, they got put out in the weather and rained on and completely destroyed, along with a whole bunch of other things that were in those same boxes, because there was a few. So again, I didn't have it, and again, I still wanted it, so I went and bought a third copy. Okay, so now this is the third copy, one, two, three, right, of the Robin Wood Tarot that I had owned. And that one was not as fun. So given that it wasn't as fun, I didn't end up using it as much. Now that doesn't mean that I didn't use it, because I did. It was still a regular deck, but it wasn't my favorite anymore. And for a long time, it was actually the Deviant Moon that was one of my favorites, and I do have that deck now. This is my second copy of it. But with the Robin Wood, I didn't really know at first why it was coming across so badly, so negatively, and then the second time why it was so not cheerful but friendly. It was actually a legitimate friend instead of just a stack of cardboard, right? Like, it's not like tarot cards are all that thick, right? So, like I said, I didn't end up using it as frequently. And when I moved here, as I said, with the Goddess Tarot, many of my decks did get lost in a way when I moved here, because I had a bag that wasn't able to come with me. I wasn't able to travel with it, and that bag was, I don't even know where it ended up, to be completely honest with you. So fast forward, I'm now here, and I've been slowly building up my tarot collection. And when I say slowly, I mean slowly, because in 3 years in Ottawa, in Canada, which is where I was living last, I had over 60 tarot and oracle decks when I was packing up. Okay, so when I got here, like I said, I only ended up bringing about 8 or so, 8, 9, around that point, because the rest were in that bag. So I've been slowly building up my collection again, and I think I'm at like 30, maybe, probably not even that high, to be honest, probably closer to 20. But, I've been slowly building it back up, and as a gift, I had someone close to me buy me a new copy of that Robin Wood that I did not have. Okay. And that deck feels like arguing with myself, which is fine, because I argue with myself all the time, but that sense of, I'm just gonna argue and make my point, and you're not gonna like it, but I'm gonna shove it down your, like, it literally feels like I'm fighting with myself. And I know how stubborn I am, and I know how difficult it can be to change my mind when I'm set on something. Yeah. Like, I'm that person that's really, really spontaneous, jump first, think later, and spend money, buy more tarot decks. Oops, why did I buy that? So when I received that Robin Wood, I immediately unwrapped it. Like, there was no chance that was going to stay in the box or in any of that cellophane. And so, of course, I shuffled it. And to be completely honest with you, I will normally shuffle a deck, and that's it, for at least the first 2 days before I start actually reading with it, because I am insistent that I have to make sure that the deck is fully shuffled. Okay. And I say that as I'm literally sitting here shuffling my Centennial. Okay. And like, I'll literally just sit here like this and watch TV or talk to a friend or whatever. shuffle cards. So as soon as that Robinwood was open, it's exactly what I started doing, because it was one of those decks that I didn't need to learn. I already knew it. And I have my own strategy for learning a deck. And as far as that goes, we're going to be running, well, I am going to be running some classes on how to get to know your tarot deck and make friends with your tarot deck the Reiki Den way. So if you are interested in that, you can definitely reach me. You can email me at jack@thereikiden.wpg.com. I'll add that into the box below as well. And there's going to be other courses as well in relation to Reiki and tarot and just like a whole bunch of stuff. So definitely check out the website at thereikiden.wpg.com, and you'll find all the information there. Sorry, someone just drove by my house and I'm almost stopped, and I'm like, you don't live here? What can I say? I'm that nosy neighbor that like needs to know all the things going on out there. And for what it's worth, my dog is too, because he's just sitting there like staring outside. Oh, there he goes. That car, somebody just got out. Taxi. That's enough. It's okay. So, sorry. So when I did unwrap that one, and I did shuffle and shuffle and shuffle and shuffle, and sorry, I dropped a card again. Okay. Like, I'm just shuffling and shuffling and shuffling, and when I'm just shuffling, I don't pay attention to the cards that fall out, because frankly, I am a very klutzy person when it comes to most things, shuffling included. So I could drop 10 cards on the floor at one time, and I'm not going to sit there and try to figure out what they're telling me. Because like in the course of shuffling for 20 minutes, I'm going to drop the cards 20 times, minimum. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, back to my topic. So I shuffled those cards like crazy, and I pulled them out for a reading after I think on the third day, and I'm going through them, the same as I always did, even though they were shuffled. Okay, I'm sitting there and I'm going through the images and just making sure that I'm taking it all in, and things seemed different again. It's like, what is happening here? Like, why does the deck read differently? So after going through them card by card, I reshuffled for a couple of minutes, nothing serious, and then I laid them out, and all I was doing was a 3-card pull. It wasn't past, present, future. It was more me, them, outcome was what I was going for, and it was a very, very clear message, like very, very clear. And it wasn't, oh, there's oops. There's a bit of a tear in that card. Like when I laid the cards out, I knew in like half a second what it was that I was looking at, like what the answers were. I knew all the keywords. I knew all the interpreters, like, or interpretations, and the symbolism and all that. I knew all of it, but it was still different, because this one felt like a friend, the best kind of friend. Okay, like that one friend who is incredibly dependable and is always going to be there for you no matter what you've done. That was that new Robinwood deck for me. So, and it continues to be that way. Okay, now it's not the one that I have up here right now, because as I said, I've got my Centennial. I am doing readings. We're filming in between readings right now. So I don't have that up here with me currently, but it's still a nice connection. So when I go back and look at these cards and like this specific Robinwood deck, I have an asshole deck. I have my mentor deck. I guess it's a good way to put it, because that's like when I learned everything. This is the one that really taught me, like reading with it was the deck that taught me about the the structure in tarot that I was looking for. And then I have my acquaintance kind of moving into a friend kind of thing. And then I have my best friend in a deck. And it's all the same deck. It's all the Robin Wood, but they're different copies of it. So I learned along the way that when it comes to tarot, you can own 10 copies of the same deck, and none of them are going to read the same way. They all have different energy. Right now, thinking of tarot and energy, okay, in terms of Reiki, all right, it's like if I put Reiki into this deck, okay, I can put healing energy into it, yes, but I can put physical healing, or I can put mental healing, I can put healing in the past, I can put healing in the future. So it's different energy, right? And that is exactly how I've kind of come to interpret what happens when you have multiple copies of the same deck, but they're all different. It's like I could take, if I want no bullshit, I'm going to grab the Deviant Moon, okay? If I want straightforward, no fluff, Centennial. That's why I use it for public readings. If I want something softer, if I want something a little bit easier because I'm, having a bad day mentally, I might choose, what other deck do I have that would fit that? The Field Tarot. If I'm doing a reading that's like it would be a shamanic tarot reading that involves power animals and spirit guides and all that stuff, I'm going to use my Arc Tarot, tarot and oracle. So I have different purposes for different decks, and that is just because the different energies that these different decks give off. And multiple copies of the same deck will still have different energy than the other copies. And it doesn't matter if you own them all at the same time or if you own them at different times. That energy shift is still going to be the same. So one thing that I have found is almost vital for me, okay, after I've gone ahead and studied the deck, which is, me making friends with the deck, the final step to that is doing a deck interview. And I'm sure a lot of you that are tarot readers have heard of deck interviews. And it was never a thing that I did. Okay, it was never something that I was really interested in doing or that I felt was necessary. But that's changed. I understand a lot better now the reasoning behind doing a deck interview. And this is very personal to you, right? So for me, personally, I have generally 3 questions that I'm going to ask. Okay? So the first one is, what is your purpose with me? Okay? And I'll get a card that will come up that will indicate that it is personal to me, or that it's being claimed by one of my deities, or that it's for public readings only, or it's just for family, or nobody else is allowed to touch this deck because it's sacred. There's so many different ways that it could show up, right? So the second question that I'm going to get is, how do you speak to me? Like, what tone will you use to speak with me? And again, it's very straightforward. You shuffle your cards, you lay that one card out, and that energy right there, that is going to be the energy that your cards bring to you with your questions, to your readings. And then the final question that I will bring up is something along the lines of, sorry, the wording is escaping me. It would be, what advice do you have for me in regard to working with you? So that's kind of a long-winded question, but you see, I hope you get the gist there. So it's like, what kind of a relationship are we going to have? What are we going to accomplish together? And again, you shuffle the deck, you lay the card out. You can do all 3 questions at the same time, or you shuffle them and lay all 3 out, or you can do them one at a time and reshuffle in between with all of the cards. And then just reshuffle the whole deck and put, the first one that you pull is the answer to the second question. Then you just write it down, move on to the next question. You can ask as few or as many questions as you feel comfortable asking, like as many as you feel is needed. Some decks require more questions. Some require fewer questions. Some you might think don't require questions, but I would still recommend doing even a very basic, 2-3 question deck interview, just so that you have that information. And then all you need to do really is just write that on a piece of paper, if it's, most convenient. Fold that up and stick it into the box or bag with your deck, so that if ever you're not sure what deck you should be grabbing for a specific kind of question, like maybe this deck is going to be the best for love questions, or maybe it's best for career questions, or decision-making questions, like should I do A or B? If I do A, what will be the outcome? If I do B, what will be the outcome? Right? Things like that. Like, every deck has its own specialty. Like, really, it does. And I know that as I'm saying this, it can come across as being a little bit like, what are you talking about? They're cards. And I promise you, I had the same thought for a very long time. But the more that I work with my decks, the more of my energy goes into them, and the more personality they seem to have. It's like my energy wakes them up. So that can happen regardless of the deck, or how many times you've owned the deck, or how many copies of that deck you currently have. It doesn't matter. Every single deck is going to have its own personality. So the next time you're working with a deck, a new deck, an old deck, it doesn't matter. Try doing some of those questions. Try asking, like, what kind of a personality do you have? How are our readings going to go? Are you harsh or gentle, or, however you want to word that one, so that it's not a yes or no. Okay. What is your purpose? What kind of readings do you prefer doing? And you can get those answers based on the card that you pull. So if you do give it a try, I would really, really, really love to hear how that goes for you and any results that you get. And it's not just, basics like the Robin Wood or the Centennial. I literally do that with every single deck that I have, including Oracle decks, actually. I happen to have an Oracle deck that I'm beginning to work with, and I'm using the same strategy to get to know the deck as I would use for tarot, because the procedure works the same way. So that information we would be covering in my Getting to Know Your Tarot Deck class. So as I said, if you're interested, just email me Jack, J-A-K, at the Reiki Den, WPG at or WPG.com. Oh my goodness, I'm so used to Gmail. There is another alternative. It would be the.reiki.den.wpg@gmail.com. I don't generally use that one a whole lot, just because all the dots make it confusing, but it's definitely easier to read. So, I'm going to call it quits for this video. I do have a review that I'm going to be putting up in the near future. With any luck, that will go up next week, early next week, probably Monday. And I am also going to be doing a video introducing the show. So please do stay tuned. Don't forget to like, subscribe,